and Head of Research and Information Services at Nigeria's premier think tank, Nigerian Economic Summit Group. Good morning, and thank you very much for coming on, Sope.
Good morning.
And she's also a research fellow at the University of Stellenbosch. If you didn't know, that's in South Africa, so there. Sitting right next to her, yeah, he looks like, you know, the Terminator governor. I don't know why I'm reminded of that. But, Nifemi, actually, he's a third-year law student at the University of Lagos. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you very much.
And we also have with us Edefe Ojomo. Mr. Ojomo is a lecturer at the Department of Jurisprudence and International Law, Faculty of Law, University of Lagos. So you can see that we're pretty heavy this morning. We got all the eggheads. Can you imagine? It just takes you so many seconds to say just their titles. And I didn't even finish all of them. I didn't even go to tell you some of Sope's books, but I don't know, maybe we'll get a time where we'll get a chance to get to it. I saw that you'd done something. You wrote a book on corruption as it relates to procurement.
Yes.
Taking it out. But that's probably a whole subject for another day. As I was saying, Edefe also is a co-founder of Young African Research Arena. And if you wanted to, you could check out the website. It's YARA, Y-A-R, and then Arena, YARA at .org. You could check that out. Now, having set the scene, I started off with the irreverence of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Nigeria's, let me start with you, Sope, if I might. Nigeria's education. Let me put it to you, because just like your friend, your colleague, Edefe, you lecture, you teach, and you've done so, you know, around the world.
Yes.
And you also studied here.
I did.
You studied in Nigeria first.
I studied in Unilag, as a matter of fact.
Indeed, Unilag. And everybody here is Unilag. Now, you studied in Unilag, and then at least you went on to do other things. Edefe is busy striking here. You know, she's still
We actually met teaching together at Unilag. So she taught at Unilag as well.
Okay, now tell me, since you studied here, and you've also had experience widely around the world, what is it that you think we should be doing differently for our education to be more functional?
Okay, thank you. That's a great question. I'll say that there are three things that are not working the way they should in Nigerian education system. Talking about higher education now at university level. First of all, I think our approach to teaching methodology is wrong, or we're not doing it the way that it's done in modern economies.
Okay.
I'll give you an example. In the universities where I've taught in England and in South Africa, they're very, very focused on teaching through what we call the Socratic method, developed by Socrates, the philosopher. And that's, in a nutshell, Socratic method just means question and answer method. So within the confines of the class, the students are allowed to pose questions, they're allowed to challenge, they're allowed to bring in their own thoughts into, you know, the class. So we are not focused on, okay, this curriculum says we must do 1, 2, 3, and that's it. So in a class, you have a lot more engagement, you have a lot more debate, and what that does is that it teaches students critical thinking because they can question. And the answers don't necessarily have to come from the teacher. They can come from fellow students. So you really train the students to learn how to question things and how to even find out the answers for themselves, as opposed to relying on this lecturer give me this note or this handout, we call it in Nigeria, and that's all I need to know. So that's one thing that Nigeria needs to move away from.
Indeed, and you know, it's a very exciting point. As you said, there are a number of things. You said maybe there are up to at least 3 things, and I think this is just the first. But I'm going to revisit that point, because you said there that you would like to see somewhere a situation where students are encouraged to question, you know, to question things. Edefe, it's all right that I see that you're nodding your head in complete agreement, but you know that this society, to what extent do you think it wants its youth trained to question things?
I think it's something that's slowly developing, and it's not just the teachers that have a problem here, it's also the students. I was telling Dr. Williams-Elegbe about an experience I had, because before I taught at Unilag, I taught at the University of Uyo. And I remember I had taught at a class, and the students came out with me and came to my office and said they needed to talk to me, and they wanted to tell me that they thought I was being too lenient in the classroom. You know, there were just too many people talking, you know, and they said, you know, it's just too many voices.
Yes, yes, because there's the discipline of the headmaster where
exactly, so
everybody
speaks,
be quiet, you know, nobody
so
speaks.
Even the students don't expect to be able to ask questions, you know, and they get offended when their colleagues ask questions. So I think, the idea being that just drink at the fount of the oracle. Yeah.
Exactly,
exactly. So it's the sage on the stage. Yeah. The teacher is a sage on a stage, and nobody else can question, and nobody else can contribute. So it's something we need. So it's not just re-educating ourselves as teachers. It's also re-educating the students to understand that their voices are important in the entire process as well.
Nifemi, you're a student, and we're talking very much in an area that you're concerned with. What do you think about this notion? First of all, coming up, I introduced you saying you're a third-year law student, but your primary and secondary education, was that local?
Yes, it was.
So this idea, now you know about it, but back then, did you see any of that at all?
I didn't think it was a problem, but I think one of the reasons why I didn't think it was a problem was that Facebook and Twitter wasn't a big deal as it was now. Now, what's happening is that a lecturer can say something in class, and I go back on Twitter and I'm following a Guardian law blog, and they're saying something entirely different. And I'm telling the lecturer that, sir, what you're saying is from a while back, this is the most recent development. And he's telling me, no, this is what I'm telling you, take it like that. And I'm like, there are other experts on Twitter and they're saying this is the new development or this is how it should be. And they're still arguing. So I agree with what the two speakers have said. We have to encourage us to ask questions. And what Ms. Ojomo says a lot is, I'm actually guilty of it. Sometimes people ask questions and you're wondering that, or why are you asking questions? You can just go back to textbook and read it. And the thing about going back to textbook and read it is that it's written words. It's just 2 sentences. But when you ask a lecturer can give you the perspective of, oh, I read this, I read that, I read that, and a couple of things. And she gives you a holistic view of that thing rather than just written words on paper.
Sope, to come back to you, how is our education geared? Yesterday, I was chatting with Edefe, and she was observing that, you know what, all this business in the society, it looks like the GPA, the certificate, the ranking, all of these are the most important things, and making some use of it, the functional aspect of it is entirely missing. As long as you get a first class, then you're fine. But the problem is, there must be a number of first class, holders who don't have a job.
Yeah. Okay. When we talk about the education system not being functional, I think what we really mean is that it's not really meeting the needs of the larger society.
But isn't that what you design a whole education policy about and for?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's why, it's kind of broken, because it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. So when you graduate, any employer will expect that you have not just your certificate and the knowledge of your subject matter, but that you have a number of skills. Now, those skills ought to have been picked up along the way in university, not just from the classroom, but from doing things outside the classroom. So for instance, as an employer, you want someone who can think critically. But if you've never been taught how to think, you need to learn how to think. It's not intuitive. But if you've never been taught how to think because you've never been allowed to ask a question or to debate, then you don't know how to think, which means that you then cannot take the initiative when you get to the workplace. And that's one of the major criticisms a lot of employers have with Nigerian graduates, so they don't take any initiative. They can follow instructions, so you can say go left and they go left at the time you say that. But if they get to the left and there's a roadblock, then they don't know what to do. And that's a problem for employers because they cannot handhold their recruits. So that's why I'm so passionate about people being taught how to think in the classroom and then gathering other skills outside the classroom by doing other things. If you teach in any other part of the world, you find that employers are more concerned about what you've done as your extracurricular than what you've done in the classroom. So they don't care that you have a first class if you've not done any other thing to show that you've acquired a wider range of skills, teamwork, learning how to work with other people, learning how to think, just learning how to get along, how to use your own initiative, learning how to make things happen, even if you're not given explicit direction.
Almost like people skills.
Exactly.
You know?
And that's what you need in the workplace. You don't necessarily need just the formal substance of what you've learned in the classroom, but that is sorely lacking in Nigerian education system.
Edefe, this is, as I said, this is a point that you brought up to me yesterday. I don't know if your, research support website for youth in diaspora, African youth, if that is an entirely different thing, or if that is also somehow geared towards this objective of, and when Sope said it, that people have to learn to think. Everybody thinks that they can think, but you actually have to learn to be able to think strategically, and I doubt that this has been paid attention to. What probably has been happening is that if it's geography, you get told about geography, you regurgitate it back to me, you do it well enough, I give you a first class, and that's the end of that. And now Sope is, throwing a spanner in the works by saying that in addition to getting the first class, people are going to know what else can I do, and that's going to be important.
The website, that particular project, is really about developing research and writing skills amongst African students.
Oh, that's heavy.
It's an area that after I've been teaching for about 3 years, and it's an area that I find is sorely lacking. So our students, they speak well, but they write quite poorly, especially when it comes to writing policy papers, writing academic papers. And you have writing centers in schools in many parts of the world, but it's something that we don't really have here. We don't have writing clinics, research and writing, developing classes and things like that. So the idea was basically to create a website that would create the opportunity for students from different, because we've had submissions from students in Kenya, students in South Africa, and students in Nigeria. I find that students in those other countries are more excited about the opportunity. I'm still trying to get Nigerian students excited about doing academic writing. So we're starting a giveaway. We're giving out a Samsung Galaxy Tab this year.